Apologies, dear participants. Facilitator will be joining us in a minute. Just network issues as usual. Sorry about that. We're so sorry about that. Definitely will be coming back to start the session shortly. And to our audience on YouTube, please endeavor to use the comment section to introduce yourself. We'd like to meet you, share your LinkedIn. Okay, I think Mr. Femi is on the call now.
In September 2015, the member states of the UN adopted the 2030 Agenda and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Under this unified agenda, the international community combined the commitments to sustainable development that were made at the UN's Rio+20 conference with the process of renewing the Millennium Development Goals implemented between 2000 and 2015. What's new about the 2030 Agenda is its universal nature. Its 17 goals apply to all member states, not simply the poor countries and the populations of the South. Furthermore, each of these goals must be achieved in a way which respects the three dimensions of sustainable development: social, economic, and environmental. Among the 17 goals that have been identified are those relating to poverty, education, energy, gender equality, environmental conservation, responsible consumption and production, and the fight against climate change. The universal nature of the 2030 Agenda means that each of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals will be implemented differently in different countries. For example, while certain countries continue to struggle with hunger, others should be more concerned with promoting a healthy diet and combating obesity. While Switzerland throws away a third of its food, other countries lose a significant proportion of their harvests because of inadequate storage. And while certain populations are concerned about access to energy, many others consume enormous amounts and need to find a solution to reduce this consumption and its impact on the environment. Switzerland played an important role in the drafting of the 2030 Agenda. For example, it has a particular interest in some of the issues included in the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, such as health, gender equality, water and peace. Switzerland is also concerned about some of the cross-cutting aspects which must be considered, such as means of sustainable consumption and production, or reducing disaster risk. The 2030 Agenda will therefore impact directly on how Switzerland's international cooperation develops, as it helps to implement the goals at the international level. Nationally, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals will be factored to a greater extent into domestic policy decisions and statements to the Swiss people. Everyone is responsible for putting the 2030 Agenda into practice. Its adoption also marks a shift in the way in which sustainable development is approached and implemented. Individual citizens, civil society, the private sector, the scientific community, the cantons and communes. There are many actors who can pool their skills and interests to make the 17 Sustainable Development Goals a reality. All sources of funding will be important in realizing sustainable development, be they public, private, national, or international. The systematic implementation of projects funded in public-private partnerships is one example of how synergies can be created and more money mobilized. By working together, we can enable everyone to live a life of dignity. But we must ensure that economic and social development is not achieved at the expense of the environment. It is an approach that is as ambitious as it is promising, and one to which Switzerland is committed by adopting the 2030 Agenda and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Let me start by apologizing once again for the little issue we have this morning. Now we have Mr. Femi Oyeniyi. We have him on a call now. Good morning, Mr. Femi. Please, we appreciate you unmute your mic. We're expecting that your presentation. I understand that we had some technical issue with Zoom platform here, but definitely we'll be starting the session straight away. We'll kindly appreciate you unmute and share your slides with us, sir. Thank you so much. Like I earlier mentioned, Mr. Femi will be taking a section on the age of sustainable development goals. I know many of us have been hearing about sustainable development goals, and even many of us know about sustainable development goals, but there are still some things we don't really know. And yes, what happened, the transition from MDGs to SDGs, and the principle underlying what are we being expected to do within the decade of action, which started from 2020 to 2030. Mr. Femi will be throwing more light on this. Good morning, sir. We are glad to have you on the call, Mr. Femi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel Lowe. Please, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Oh, thank you so much. I've sent my PowerPoint presentation by mail.
Okay.
I'm making this presentation via a phone, so it's not really very comfortable to share my screen. What I'm kindly requesting, in essence, is please could you share my?
That's fine,
yes.
sir.
Thank you so much.
From my end.
That being said, I would like to appreciate once again the leadership of SDSN Nigeria, led by our chair, Professor Popola, for giving us wings to fly and for ensuring that the ideas and thoughts we share with him, he gives us platform to be able to implement and actualize. Thank you, sirs. We also want to thank the co-chair and other members of the Leadership Council of our network. That being said, we would like to set the ball rolling by looking at what the topic before us this morning is. And thank you, esteemed audience, for making our time to be here this morning. We are praying and hoping that the time spent here will be worthwhile. So the topic before me, I've tried to reframe it, even though it's captioned as the age of sustainable development, transition from MDGs to SDGs, the 2030 agenda, and 17 SDGs, why we need the SDGs. I've just done a slight rephrasing, and so it's captioned the age of sustainable development, transitions from MDGs to SDGs, and why we need the SDGs. All I did was just to try to remove a few of the words so that it will be less complex and very easy for each of us to assimilate. Okay, I'll just do a few preambles while the team at the back end is trying to project the slide. So development, as we know, is an effort that leaders in a community or in a state or in a country or in a region or a continent, if we want to even amplify it further across the world, try to achieve. So development is not something that comes individually. It's not something that comes, especially when we are talking about it in relation to a society. It's not only an individual's effort that will result to the much achieved to the much anticipated results. That being said, I'll try to look at how the effort of leaders all over the world led to the formulation of the MDGs, and then how we transitioned to the SDGs. Okay, so essentially the presentation this morning will be looking at three things: a background, that's from MDGs to SDGs, and then the 2030 agenda, and then a role for each and every one of us as individuals. I would like to start by saying that leaders of countries, about 189 countries all over the world, gathered at the United Nations in New York, United States of America, and they signed an historic declaration. Let's not forget that the year 2000 was the year that ushered us into the millennium. And just before that year, 1999, there was the dot-com bubble, where it was said that computers would reverse back to 1900, and so civilization itself would experience some what's it called now, technological backwardness because of certain faults with computer systems. But eventually that didn't come to materialize. So leaders, of course, I don't want to bore us with details, but even there's a need to talk about a little bit of a background as to how the United Nations itself was formed. The United Nations came into operation in the year 1945, and the idea behind that was to ensure that there was world peace, to ensure that there was the rights of each human being was respected. 3 years after the founding of the United Nations was when the Universal Human Rights was declared. That was in 1948. So that being said, leaders from developed countries, from developing countries, from underdeveloped countries came together, as I said earlier, 189 of them, and tried to look at the framework needed for countries to achieve development. And I would say that this was the very first effort that brought together all world leaders, regardless of their levels of development, to achieve a common front. Okay, so all of these leaders committed to achieving a set of goals, 8 of them specifically, that were measurable, that were specific, that had a timeline. The timeline was 15 years, year 2000 to year 2015. Okay, so these goals were revolutionary in the sense that they provided a common language for every country in the world to achieve global development. Development in terms of reducing poverty, reducing illiteracy, eradicating hunger, achieving oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. These slides are now being displayed. Achieving, I'm still on the second slide, that's background. Achieving a number of goals, cutting across different issues, health, and what have you. So they established universally agreed objectives to tackle extreme poverty and hunger, to prevent deadly diseases, and to expand primary education to all children, among others. Slide 3 gives us a picture of what, the next slide, please. The next slide. This slide gives us what these 8 goals are, or were rather. The first was to eradicate extreme poverty and hunger. The second was to achieve universal primary education. The third was to promote gender equality and empower women all over the world. The fourth was to reduce child mortality by at least half. The fifth was to improve maternal health. The sixth was to combat HIV/AIDS, malaria, and other diseases. The seventh was to ensure environmental sustainability. And the eighth was to ensure that there was global partnership for development. So these were the broad 8 set of goals that these leaders arrived at after the meeting at the UN headquarters in the year 2000. Let's bring it down home to Nigeria and see what the efforts in Nigeria was like. So implementations of the MDGs in Nigeria began when the federal government pledged to apply the savings accrued from the Paris Club debt relief gain in 2005 to pro-poor programs and projects. Okay, so Nigeria joined a little bit late in terms of implementation. Okay, and then the Presidential Committee and Monitoring Group of the MDGs and the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on MDGs were subsequently established in that year, 2005. The goal of setting up this office was very clear from the onset, and that was to guide the use of debt relief gains in the execution of pro-poor programs, and then to coordinate progress toward the MDGs. I'm sure most of us must have seen projects, hospitals, primary healthcare centers, especially primary schools that were either refurbished or built afresh, and we'll see the inscription MDGs, especially from 2005 onwards, 2006, 2007, up until 2015. So these were some of the priority projects of that particular initiative. Now, according to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, the MDGs performance tracking reports in Nigeria showed that there was an improvement in attainment of goals 3, goals 4, and goals 5 of the MDGs nationally. Okay. However, there were variations in these results across the different states for many of the targets. Okay. For example, we had target 2A. Target 2, by the way, had to do with achieving universal primary education. So for target 2A, the goal was to ensure that by 2015, children everywhere, boys and girls alike, would be able to complete a full course of primary schooling. Now, the result across the states showed that the net attendance ratio in Imo, Lagos, Edo, and the Federal Capital Territory respectively had 90.7%, 92%, 91%, 94.1% respectively. While in the states, Bauchi, Sokoto, Yobe, and Zamfara, the attendance ratio respectively were 29.9%, 24.8%, 23.7%, and 37.8% respectively. What that report also brought out was that the net attendance was higher in urban areas, 84.3%, compared to rural communities, 62.2%. Generally speaking, the MDGs had 18 targets, 48 indicators, and what they were set out to achieve was to see how development gaps can be breached within a particular country, that's among states, and generally among the Committee of Nations all over the world. It's difficult to determine what the course of development could have taken without the effort of global leaders to put in place the MDGs in terms of the location, in terms of the timing, in terms of the speed of progress achieved. It suggests, therefore, that the global goals, that's the Millennium Goals as they were then called, played a crucial role in driving developmental outcomes. And in September 2015, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and that includes the 17 development goals. The principles behind the SDGs, they begin with a summary of the Brundtland Commission, which is named after the then Prime Minister of Norway. One of the crucial statements in that document says, meeting today's needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. Another one says, progress through community engagement and evidence-based tests, evidence-based best practices for long-term sustainability of the solutions. Actually, the SDGs themselves were born at the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development in Rio de Janeiro, that's Brazil, in 2012. And at this juncture, I would like to say that the concept of sustainable development in itself, or sustainability, as we would like to call it, even predates the Sustainable Development Goals. As I said earlier, Millennium Development Goals, when global leaders came together to enact the beginning of pursuance of these goals, that was the first time leaders will come together to set a broad set of measurable, specific, and achievable goals that would help to bring about development across countries. So these goals had to be reviewed over time. And it was realized when we're drawing close to the deadline, that's 2015, that there was a need to develop a successor set of goals. This led to the conference in Rio de Janeiro in 2012, after which in 2015, the SDGs were adopted, and it was built, or they were built rather, on the principle of leaving no one behind. This new agenda emphasizes a holistic approach to achieving sustainable development for all human beings. That's from bottom to top stakeholders and actors. And what it implies is everyone has a role to play in achieving sustainable development, either old and young, rich and poor. The objective was also clear from the onset. It was to produce a set of goals that would meet urgent environmental, political, and economic challenges facing our world. And this slide, the slide before me shows the highlights of what the 17 sustainable goals are. The first says no poverty. The second says no hunger. The third says good health and well-being. The fourth says quality education. The fifth says achieving gender equality, and on and on. And each of these has their own targets and indicators. In all, 169 indicators and 234 targets. In fact, far more ambitious than what the Millennium Development Goals are, and also more inclusive. In fact, how the Sustainable Development Goals differs substantially from the Millennium Development Goals is that the Sustainable Development Goals are more inclusive. So the motto, and that is encapsulated in the motto, leaving no one behind. Unfortunately, it's the case that oftentimes when talking to people about the Sustainable Development Goals, be they those in, okay, it appears more people in government, be it at the local government level, at the state and at the federal government, have appreciated the essence of the Sustainable Development Goals, but we still need to reach much more people on our streets. I appreciate the fact that our director was making mention of the fact that we all have a role to play in educating people on what the Sustainable Development Goals are, because some people have the impression that the Sustainable Development Goals are just a set of goals some leaders formulated in their heads and is essentially an agenda for developed countries. But that's not the case. Whether it's a developing country that is involved or an underdeveloped country or a developed country, Sustainable Development Goals matter. In fact, suffice to say that in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, no country, no singular country can be said to have achieved development. Why? Because development, sustainable development is not what a country, a single country can achieve in isolation. And that's why the SDGs are a universal call to end poverty, to protect the planet, to ensure that people enjoy peace and prosperity by the year 2030. So it's a 15-year timeline, just like the MDGs. And we are already in what we call the decade of action. The decade of action talks about the 10 years leading to the deadline. That's year 2020 to year 2030. Unfortunately, with the onset of COVID, there's been a drawback for several nations in attainment of the SDGs. And with the Russia-Ukraine crisis, it has precipitated an humanitarian crisis that has also brought about reversal in attainment of those goals. For example, energy crisis is being faced by several countries in Europe. I was reading over the news yesterday that by March 2023, Nigeria is going to be supplying gas, natural gas, to several countries in Europe. And that's because of the current crisis going on in between Russia and Ukraine, because Russia accounts for about 60 to 70% of the gas used by Europe, by European countries. Okay, so again, the SDGs encourage a spirit of partnership among governments, the organized private sector, the academia, the research community, and then civil society organizations. So there's a role for each and every one person to play in the attainment of these goals. Still talking about the 20 agenda, essentially they involve partnerships, and that's why goal 17 is very key. These partnerships, however, are meant to ensure that the right choices are made to improve the quality of life in ways that future generations would also benefit from. Okay, and this brings to the fore the 5 overarching themes of the Agenda 2030, and that is people, the planet, prosperity, peace, and partnerships. I just want to mention at this juncture that Agenda 2030 is variously referred to as also the global goals or the Sustainable Development Goals. So it's an interchangeable term, so to speak. And it's for this reason that sustainable development aims at social progress, it aims at environmental equilibrium and economic growth. 5 P's, as said earlier, can easily be brought out from the SDGs. We have people. We want to see to it that the Sustainable Development Goals helps to end poverty and hunger in all forms among human beings, and then ensure that there's dignity of life and then equality, or what you call equity. Okay, talking about prosperity, it also seeks to achieve prosperous and a fulfilling life for all human beings, which is in harmony with nature. The Sustainable Development Goals also seeks to achieve peace. It seeks to foster just and inclusive societies. It realizes, however, that this cannot be achieved without protecting the planet, especially because the resources of the planet are needed both by the current generation and by future generations. And in order to achieve this, the Sustainable Development Goals realizes that there's a need to implement the agenda encapsulated in those goals through a solid global partnership, which was why I said earlier that in the context of sustainable development, no country, no single country can be said to have attained development. There are three key themes of sustainable development. We have the environment, we have the social pillar, and we have the economic pillar. What the environment pillar seeks to buttress is to see to it that we have a viable natural environment, that we have a sustainable and well-built environment, and that we are also able to nurture a strong sense of community or communality. It reinforces the Ubuntu principle, I am because we are. And also there's an economic pillar inherent in the sustainable development. And that is, we want to see how economies across countries can be viable and self-sustaining. So we'll take each of these one after the other. Economic sustainability. Economic sustainability, which is embedded in sustainable development, is a means by which the systems of production or manufacturing is such that consumption is satisfied without compromising future needs. In other words, sustainable consumption and production. That is one of the things that economic sustainability seeks to achieve. So the three main activities carried out in any economy across the world are these: consumption, distribution, and production. And this is what the first pillar of sustainable development is about. Distribution talks about effective supply chain system. Production, how are things, goods, consumer goods produced, or how are services delivered in a way that is harmonious to nature, that is less destructive to nature. And what about consumption patterns? Are consumption patterns sustainable? The means by which we dispose these goods, because for every good that is produced, they will have their shelf life. So when they've outlived their usefulness, how are they discarded? So these main activities, production, distribution, consumption, max out what we have underlying economic sustainability. So economic sustainability, therefore, can be said to require that decisions should be made in ways that are equitable and fiscally sound, while considering other aspects of sustainability. And that leads us to the second, social sustainability. This encompasses notions of equity, of empowerment, of accessibility, of participation, of cultural identity, and institutional stability. And we can go on and on to talk about institutions. In fact, a country is as strong as our institutions, be it educational institution, health institution, traditional institution, religious institutions, political institutions, and what have you. So social sustainability connotes a system of social organization that alleviates poverty. And what that means is we want to see how social conditions such as poverty and environmental destruction are reduced to the barest minimum. Social sustainability is about seeing that everyone's needs are met. And as someone said, he said, God has provided all our needs. That's what nature is about. But he has not provided for all our greeds. What that means is that the resources that are available in any one community or in any one nation, or even across the world, would be enough, not just for this current generation, but for generations coming afterwards. We have more than enough resources to go around to meet everyone's needs. but they are not enough to meet everyone's needs. And that's where the challenge lies. And this is one of the reasons why earlier we said it's important that all of us are involved in trying to achieve the SDGs, either as advocates, either as implementers, or in any other capacity, or even as as researchers, as members of the civil society organizations, which we all are part of, or as governments. We are also part of government. That's what democracy is about. It's a government for the people, by the people. So through any prism from which this is viewed, we would see that there are roles for each and every one of us to play. So again, social sustainability aims at providing enabling conditions for everyone to have the capacity to realize their needs, fulfill their life ambitions, and then achieve fulfillment ultimately. We move on to the third and the last component of sustainable development, or pillar, and that is environmental sustainability. And this is very important because oftentimes in science, there is a debate about nature and nurture. In fact, some people ask, which is more important? Is it nature and nurture? So environmental sustainability talks about the natural environment and how it should remain productive and resilient to support human life. Okay, so there's a system that has been put in place by the creator to support human life. Environmental sustainability relates to ecosystem integrity. That's the balance between plants, between animals, living things and non-living things, the soil, the water, even the air around us, and the carrying capacity of the natural environment in general. So what it seeks to do is to imply that natural resources must be harvested no faster than they can be regenerated. I'm sure for some of us who were privileged to be in science class in secondary school, we can relate to some topics that we had in chemistry. There was a carbon cycle, there's the oxygen cycle. In fact, for those of us who were not in science class, we actually took these in integrated science in junior secondary school. There was the nitrogen cycle, there's the oxygen cycle. So each of these are the cycles. So life itself has a cycle. So what we are saying is, how are the resources that we have used all across the world? And this question, I believe, should even interest more of Africans, because Africa is the most resource-rich country, or continent, sorry. Africa is the most resource is the most resource-rich continent in the world. The first, the country having the highest number of resources in that continent is Congo. That's the most resource-rich country in the world, and you can understand why that country is beset with conflicts. I mean, that's not for this conversation. Nigeria is also not lagging behind in terms of resources, be it mineral resources, solid minerals, liquid minerals, human resources. Africa is a continent with the second largest population. It also has the youngest population. So these resources are there for us to take advantage of. But the question is, the rate at which these resources are used, is it sustainable? Can they be regenerated? It also leads us to the issue of climate change by providing a convincing argument for the need for environmental sustainability. Climate change essentially talks about significant and long-lasting changes in the climate system, which is caused by natural climate variability by human activities. We know that climate change is not just induced by human activities, there's naturally induced climate change, but then anthropogenic or human-induced climate change activities accounts for far more than non-human sources. Okay, so some of the climate change induced activities includes acidification of the oceans, concentration of greenhouse gases in the ozone layer, rising sea levels, diminishing ice levels, especially at the ice caps in the Arctic regions, in the Antarctic region. We see the ice caps melting. And we see that also happening across states in Nigeria, states that are said to be semi-arid, Borno, Gombe. Some 2 weeks ago, flood ravaged communities in Gombe. Several people died. This is supposed to be a community that should not be exposed to such conditions. But we've been experiencing several of these. These are climate change phenomena. We could go on and on. In fact, it's predicted that by the year 2080, just less than 40 years from now, about 20% of coastal wetlands could be lost due to sea level rise. And these are challenges that you and I are well primed to tackle effectively. And that leads us to the next item, a role for each of us as individuals in the context of sustainable development. So we've talked about the sustainable development goals. We've seen how they evolved starting from the era of Millennium Development Goals. Now, the question that each of us should be asking ourselves and trying to profile answers to is this: what is my role in contributing to attainment of the sustainable development goal in my country? We'd like to begin by looking at the framing principles of sustainable development, the preservation and sustenance of life in all forms, the dignity of the human person, the oneness of the human race, our shared heritage as humans, and our common destiny. There's also the need to tend and nurture the earth as our duty and responsibility to ourselves and to future generations. What does this all lead to? We can arrive at a safe conclusion by saying all of us have something important and positive to bring to the table. It means we require a combination of soft skills and hard skills in order to be able to achieve the sustainable development goals, be it language skills, talking about soft skills, personal attributes, cognitive or emotional empathy, time management, teamwork, leadership traits. And for the hard skills, even though this is not an exhaustive list, computer literacy, project management, data analysis, technical writing, etc. Those are things that are needed to be brought to the table when we are trying to develop solutions. Usually, sustainable solutions are created by following certain trajectories. One of the proven trajectories is by first empathizing with what the challenges in a particular given area is, and then defining what the problem is. There's even something called problem tree analysis. So oftentimes we need to know what the root cause of a problem is, what the remote causes are, what the immediate causes are. And then we need to begin to ideate. What are the possible solutions that can come out? What are the possible means of solving challenges, unique challenges? And then we'll begin to prototype. We'll narrow down the options. Having looked at a barrage of solutions, we narrow down to specific ones that can be more sustainable. And then we test, we apply, and see what the results can be. And then we repeat the process again. We empathize, we define the problem, we ideate, we prototype, and we test. I think by following this trajectory, each and every one of us can effectively contribute our quota to achieving sustainable development in our country. I once again want to thank the leadership of Sustainable Development Solutions Nigeria, led by our chair, for giving us this opportunity to share these few thoughts with a distinguished audience. And I would also like to thank our Youth Network chair for putting this together. And so we'll look forward to the questions coming in from the audience. Thank you once again for this very good opportunity, everyone.
Wow, this is awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Mr. Femi. This is really an insightful session which you've just taken us through. And I could remember when I mentioned something earlier at the beginning of today's training session, where that's regarding the course which I took on SDGs, and yeah, which took a lot and a very long period of time. But this is what you've narrowed down and really, really insightful. Without taking much of our time, we would like to attend to some questions and answer. I know we have participants from YouTube. We have more participants on the YouTube platform than the Zoom platform. So for those of us that are on the Zoom platform, we just, if you have a question, kindly raise your hand. Then the admin are going to give you access to ask your question. But please, if you are going to ask your question directly, we appreciate you ask your question in less than 30 seconds. And you can as well drop it in form of a question using the comment section. Those of us on YouTube, please kindly drop your questions on the comment section. We are going to pick it from there and attend to it. I think we have a question from Glory. Glory, please kindly unmute your mic and ask your question. Okay, we have Glory. Okay, Kelvin, if you are there, you can unmute your mic and ask a question in 30 seconds, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we'd like you just introduce yourself, where you are joining from, then your question in 30 seconds.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I'm Kevin. I'm joining from Abeokuta. So my question is, first of all, thank you for the presentation. You mentioned in the course of the presentation that Nigeria had a delay implementation for the MDGs, and Nigeria was able to start in 2005. So my question is, what was responsible for the delay of implementation for Nigeria? And have we learned any lesson for that in order to ensure timely implementation for the SDG? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Kelvin. Mr. Femi, I would like to ask, will you prefer to answer each question, or will you prefer to take like 2 questions or 3 questions first, which you later respond to at once? Is he online? Hello, sir.
Yes, please, can you unmute me? I'm muted.
Yes, you're unmuted, sir. You've unmuted you, sir.
Oh, thank you so much. So can everyone hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. So we have series of questions coming in. We have like 5 people that wants to ask their question directly. We have some comments and questions on the chat in the comment section too. So I want to confirm if you like to respond to each one, or we should take 3 at a time, then you respond to the 3 at once. Hello, Mr. Femi.
Yes, let's take 3 at a time. Okay, let's take 3 at a time. Right.
So I would love Prince, you can unmute your mic. Then David should also prepare to ask his question. Prince, you can unmute your mic and ask your question.
Okay. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Good morning.
Okay. Thank you, the presenter. My question. Yeah, my question is, on the course of your presentation, you said that on the context of SDG, that no country on its own can be said to have attended SDG goals. Then my question becomes, if it is so, the SDG goals, is it attainable at all? If no country on its own can actually say, yes, we have attended these 17 goals outlined, can it be attended at all? That's my own question. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. David, kindly unmute your mic and ask your question.
You don't need to. Hello?
Yeah,
hello? Sorry, I want to know if our meeting throughout this program will be...
Speak on, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Yeah, I said I want to make inquiry, please, if our meeting throughout will be virtual.
Sorry, come again?
I said I want to know, please, if our program throughout this platform will be virtual, or we have a physical.
Okay. That's great. All right. I'm still going to respond to that, and I will throw more light on that. Okay, Mr. Michael, you can ask your question, unmute your mic and ask your question while Mr. Femi responds to the question. We just want to attend to all the questions for all participants that are joining first while Mr. Femi responds to the question. So after he's done, once he's done with the questions, then we throw more light on the program structure and all.
I need to give you this. I need to go clean now. That was the question. You're not giving just.
Yeah, Michael, you can unmute your mic and ask your question, please.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning. This morning.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Ajayi Ayomito Michael. I'm joining from Ibadan, Nigeria. So my question is, okay, you talked about 3 dimensions of sustainable development, which are social, economic, and environmental. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. So looking at the SDGs, I mean the whole SDGs, and I want to ask, like, which category can education, that's quality education, that is our SDG 4, which category can it fit into in this kind of the 3 dimensions that was mentioned by Mr. Femi, and relating this to technology, because I'm into technology, and also how can you relate technology and education? Which aspect can it fit into in this kind of in these 3 dimensions? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Michael. Over to you, Mr. Femi. Please, you can unmute your mic and respond to the first set of questions, sir.
Okay, thank you so much once again, Mr. Olowoyo. I want to appreciate at this juncture each and every question that has come. They are really questions born out of deep thinking and following what was presented. So for the first question, it was asked that what was responsible for the delay in implementation of the MDGs, the Nigerian Development Goals. Since the goals began in 2000, outcome implementation in Nigeria began in 2005. So I'll just provide a little bit of historical background. So don't forget that Nigeria just returned to democracy in the year 1999, and Nigeria was like a pariah state. Pariah meaning that we were isolated largely from the Committee of Developed of the Committee of Nations. Let me just put it that way for short. What that also meant is we're indebted largely. However, it was in the year 2005 that several of our debts were cancelled. And so funds became available to implement these goals, because when you talk about goals being set, there's a need to pursue the attainment of those goals. It's one thing to set goals, is another to try to achieve them at a national scale. So that is why it took some time for the country to begin implementation. The country itself was among the signatory countries to formulation of those goals. Of course, by year 2000, Nigeria was already, democracy had already been restored. So Nigeria was part of the countries represented by the president, of course, who signed that treaty. But actual implementation began in 2005 when some funds were available to be able to pursue the attainment of the goals. I don't know if that little historical background has helped, but that is what happened. Okay, and I think there was also a little bit of question as to how we can quickly latch on to SDGs. So the SDGs, let me very quickly also put out another information. So SDGs were not, MDGs, sorry, Millennium Development Goals, were not fully achieved across the world. Okay, so and that's formed the basis for the development of the Sustainable Development Goals. And Nigeria quickly latched on to the Sustainable Development Goals, by the way. In fact, the then Minister of Environment, who is now the Deputy UN Secretary General, Mrs. Hamina Ahmed, was someone that played a key role in developing that document. Okay, so it's a lot of countries were involved. A lot more countries were involved in the development of the Sustainable Development Goals. And then since Nigeria already had an office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on MDGs. That office just transited to Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs. So that's the full information that I would like to give as touching that. Then the second question, the question was asked that since it was said that no country can really be said to be developed in the context of SDGs, that are those goals attainable at all? So I'll take on from where I stopped answering the last question. I would say that not all the MDGs were achieved globally, but that's not to say that those goals didn't achieve considerable effect. For example, malnutrition was halved at a global scale. Maternal mortality was halved at a global scale, and several other things. And we don't know what would have happened to each of these issues if those goals were not set. So it's better to have even set those goals, which to begin with was the very first attempt by global leaders anywhere at any point in time in history to come together to say, this is the agenda we should pursue, development agenda, we should pursue for all our countries. So that was the very first attempt. So that being said, the sustainable development goals, yes, they can be attained. But again, the strong need for partnership, I also want to go back in time to say that the concept of sustainable development in itself is not new. Recall that how the goals themselves were formed dates back to 1987, when that report, Our Common Future, was produced by a committee put in place by the UN in 1982. So it took them 5 years to develop that report, from 1982 to 1987. That's 5 years, led by the then Prime Minister of Norway, Ms. Brundtland. Okay, but then sustainability in itself is a concept that is rooted in agriculture. I think is in the aspect of forestry in the 19th century, I think 1867, thereabouts. So sustainability has been a recurrent word in science. And that being said, it means even though 2030 is a timeline that has been set for attainment of the sustainable development goals, but you still keep hearing the word sustainability, it will be a recurring theme. It will be, because if you look at the roots meaning of the word, it means sustenance, it means preservation, it means conservation. And trust me, for the future generation to be able to thrive, there's a need for sustainability. And so that goes back to the question that countries need to be interdependent. Countries can't just be independent and expect that they would attain long-lasting development. I think that should suffice. Okay. The last question was, which category can education fit into? That's which of the pillars of sustainable development? I would say all the pillars. So let me just also provide a little bit of context. So why we said sustainable development as pillars is to say that each goals will find their legs in these pillars. So it's like a tripod on which the entire goals stand. So if it's a pivot, you can't isolate any of the pillars. In fact, if you isolate any of the pillars, or if you remove any of the pillars from the goals, then the goals themselves are not sustainable. So once you can't find a social component for any goal, you can't find an environmental component, you can't find an economic component, is not fit to be called a sustainable development goal. So let me take the one you mentioned. For example, you talk about education and you specifically mentioned technology, that's the space in which you play. Excellent, wonderful. What's the essence of technology? Technology is a tool. You use that tool to achieve a social good. Okay, so that talks about the social component. The other would be the environmental component. You want to do this in a way that is sustainable. So all of us have a timeline for which we'll be on this earth. By the time you are gone, by the time I'm gone, how about other generations that are coming? They would also need to leverage on technology. But let's assume all the resources that you use in gathering the tools have been exhausted. There'll be nothing for them to use. So there's a need to look at things that are renewable and sustainable. And then you want to see how that thing will bring about profit, not just for you, but for everyone, shared prosperity. So for any singular goal, they would have their leg embedded in these three pillars. I think I've tried to answer each of these questions to the best of my ability. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Femi. Yes, you indeed really attended to each of those questions. And we have some questions on YouTube. Let me start by asking the one from Mohammed. He asked that how can our people in the core north, especially from the rural area, benefit from these initiatives? I won't direct it to the initiative now. How can people in the rural area benefit from the sustainable development goal at this crucial time of insecurity? And Michael also asked that are there laid down steps for funding and sponsorship for a program geared towards achieving the SDGs? Then there is a question that also asks, what is the assurance that SDGs will be implemented in Nigeria, taking a cue from what happened with MDGs?
Okay, can I respond, please?
Yes, you can, sir.
Okay, thank you so much once again. I'll start with the last question. What's the assurance that the SDGs can be attained in Nigeria, taking a cue from the MDGs? So the MDGs, I would like to reemphasize. Even I've answered that question earlier, but I'm trying to lay more emphasis. So I'll provide more context. The MDGs in themselves, 8 set of goals, were not all equally achieved across the globe. But I did say, and this is marked by evidence, so it's not just me saying it, it's proven, that in several aspects of development, those goals were attained. However, not all of them. But in Nigeria, about 3 crucial goals were achieved. Maternal mortality significantly reduced. Children enrollment in schools, for example, Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, I quoted figures from Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. If you don't mind, I can even share a soft copy of that document. It's available in the public space. Nigerian Bureau of Statistics has been conducting surveys in the country right from the 60s, when it was then called Federal Office of Statistics. And so they showed that there was an improvement in school enrollment from 1984 compared to 2015 when the MDGs ended. In fact, they did it on a 2-year basis. So they did it in 2014, 2012, 2010, 2008, 2006. So to that extent, we can't say totally that the MDGs were none of the MDGs were attained in Nigeria. So there's a need to give context. However, it's also good to look at how the picture looks like regionally across the country. You see the figures quoted, and that was just for education. The story of education, especially enrollment in primary school, because it's key. That's a basic level of education. In the South appeared to fare better than the North for different reasons. Okay, so we also know that even within the South, certain regions fared better. For example, the Southeast appear to have fared to have had the upper hand. After that, the Southwest, then the South-South. So the story differs depending on where you are in the country. That being said, it is very possible to make significant progress in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. I would like to end by just quoting what someone said, which is very true. He said, if you can't aim for the sun, aim for the moon. Another person put it differently. He said, aim for the sun. If you don't get it, you'll get the moon. Another one said, aim for the moon. If you don't get it, you will get probably the stars. What is that trying to tell us? In reality, in our own individual lives, when we set very high goals, even if we don't get up to those goals, we'll get something close to them. So the Sustainable Development Goals they are global goals that were put together by world leaders. So different countries will now see how the extent to which they can try to achieve this at scale meaning across the country, local governments, states, and then in a particular country, within a country as a whole. So if, for example, I set as a goal, and this happened to me in reality, I set a goal of getting 280 in my JAMB, my UTME, but eventually I had 222. What if the goal I set was to have just 200? I probably will get 180. So when we say we want to attain the sustainable development, those goals are there in themselves. The extent to which we want to attain, the extent to which we want to play, the role we want to see ourselves contributing in attaining those goals would determine our outcome. Okay, that's
yes,
one.
sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Femi, my everyone done Joyce. So we have some questions, though we might not be able to attend to all, because those questions it's going to end up becoming further deliberations on the Telegram platform. Yes, we are going to do that. But I also we quickly take questions from Kenneth and Uche. I think Michael, I can see you raising up your hand again. You've already asked your question earlier. I'll just like to give room to Kenneth and Uche to quickly ask their question.
Hello.
Yeah. Okay, Kenneth, you can ask your question. Please introduce yourself.
All right. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel, the moderator. I also want to appreciate the effort of Professor Popola and Femi for the good topic that they took us this morning. I actually appreciate. My name is Komberuba Kennedy Feslachi. I'm from Enugu State, but I based in Nasarawa State, Cairo local government to be precise. My question is this: with the increase in cooking gas in Nigeria, is SDG goal number 13 achievable in the area of deforestation in Nigeria? I also want to ask if we are going to get soft copy of this topic after the program. Hello, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, push you can please unmute your mic and ask.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, the moderator and Mr. Femi. It's been a very awesome and insightful topic. My question is talking about social enterprise, the SDGs not actually attained without active engagement of the social enterprises, because it requires a social enterprise to be able to achieve or come to the attainment of the 17th development goal. And Mr. Femi talked about partnership, talking about leveraging partnership. So I want to ask, how will this initiative give us a platform or create an enabling environment for social enterprises to come together to scale up for the achievement of the sustainable development goals? That's my question.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. The last question is to Kabiru. Kabiru, please kindly unmute your mic and ask your question. In 30 seconds, we'd like to hear from you, where you're connecting from, and your question. Kabiru, you can unmute your mic.
Hello.
Okay, yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, good. I can say good morning, and that's a very good presentation. My name is Kabiru Saidu, calling from Bauchi State. I have heard what Mr. Femi had said. So my question here is, he had said it earlier that those sustainable development goals are more in the south. So why are they less in the north? I need to know, please, sir.
Okay, thank you, Kabiru. Mr. Femi, please, I would like to do something. I would like to, though females have not been asked a question, I think I can see Priscilla hands up. Priscilla, you can ask your question in 30 seconds. Please, I want us to make this very brief and make it more easier for our facilitator, because definitely they still have other engagement for today. Okay, Priscilla, please, you can unmute your mic and ask your question. Hello, Priscilla, if you can hear me. Okay, Mr. Femi, I will appreciate you attend to the question, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel Owoye, once again. And for the people who also asked the questions, thank you. I'll try to lump some of the questions together because they are interwoven. So someone asked for the role of social enterprises in contributing, to the attainment of sustainable development goals. So it's been said earlier in the presentation that everyone has a role to play. Social enterprise is inclusive. In fact, in Nigeria, we have a private sector advisory group on SDGs, and we're talking about big organizations like British American Tobacco, Dangote, Lafarge, and a host of others. MTN is one of them. Yeah, so social enterprises do have a role. So I will say specifically in all of this, to our platform, I can only speak for this platform, just as Mr. Emmanuel is. So together we can co-create solutions. I think in the course of this, because this is still an ongoing program, you can please reach out to Mr. Emmanuel. We have access to funding opportunities. So we want to see how we could respond to some of these calls. There are global opportunities to see how the global North and global South can cooperate to achieve development that is long-standing. So we can do concept notes, we can do proposals, some of which can be funded. And then, because essentially, I guess the direction in which the question is tending is how do we seek funds or platforms through which we'll be able to put the solutions to work. Okay, so these are veritable platforms. And I think that answers the questions on funding guidelines. So there are also guidelines in writing. There are certain things that grant awarding bodies look for. So these are good information that we can avail as men that are willing to have those information. There are things we would be glad to avail you of. Okay, so that being said, someone also asked a question that how can people in rural areas benefit from the SDGs? I would say that everyone can both be a beneficiary and a contributor. Contributor in the sense that without contributing, we can't really think of benefiting. That's the truth. In fact, that's the cycle of life. Okay, so sustainable development goals in themselves is cyclical. We are contributing and then we are benefiting. So those in the rural areas, I mean, the motto of sustainable development goals is leaving no one behind. Okay, so the first thing would be, what is the role they are also playing in, and that's why we need to advocate. That's why we need to embark on campaigns, awareness, let people know about what these goals are. They are not just, maybe we should even try and look for ways to define them that is more relatable. So instead of saying global, because I see people talking about global talks about us. I'm part of the globe. The globe is the world. So I'm part of the world. What role am I playing in the world? I'm not insignificant, just as you also are not inconsequential. So what role are you playing? What role am I playing? It's by playing our roles effectively that we can stand to benefit. The last question would be that, why is it that attainment of SDG in the North was low? Again, I'm going to provide context. I didn't say attainment of MDGs, in the North was low. I said based on the report. So this is objective. I'm not the one that came to say that. Based on the report of Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, enrollment of primary school children and completion rate also of primary school children was low. It could be for several reasons. It could be for cultural reasons. It could be because it was need for governments to domesticate. So even though the federal government of Nigeria started implementing by making funds available for the MDGs in 2005, different states implemented at different rates. So the agenda of different states governors, this pace, the how will I call it now, the rate at which they embrace those goals differed, and so attainment would also have differed. So I think that's the explanation I can give on that. Thank you once again, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Femi, for that apt response, sir. And I can say that the concept of, many of us, when we hear that, when we hear this statement, leaving no one behind, we always believe that, okay, it's of benefit and this thing should reach every end. And strategically, when it comes to advocacy or implementation of the SDGs too, we also have to think about that from that perspective, because leaving no one behind, we all have an individual responsibility to contribute towards the attainment of the SDGs. And on the YouTube platform, I can see different questions, though there are some questions which we're already asking, and subsequent modules, the masterclass sessions is going to give good answers. Like someone, Priscilla asked, what's the intersection between economics and governance in achieving the SDGs? So definitely we have an expert that will be speaking on SDGs as it relates to governance and partnership. So I will just indulge you to please, let's wait till we have that session so that we can attend to key questions now. And Isaiah also asked that what are the modalities mapped out to ensure that the various setbacks are challenges encountered by the MDGs does not befall the SDGs. And another question on YouTube, which I'll quickly like to ask, sir, is from Sterling. He or she asked, what measures are government putting in on the grassroots on the subject matter of sustainability? I'm not going to, I would love you attend to that question from the perspective of not just the government alone, cutting across to the private sector, individual, and because personally, I believe achieving sustainable development requires discipline. So I will appreciate you talk more about these two questions while we move to the next session. And please, let me quickly mention that the slide presentation, we are all going to have access to the slide presentation. And also, we are going to definitely, a link is going to be shared shortly in less than 2 minutes. Ensure you fill that link and ensure that's the evaluation and the attendance form while Mr. Femi responds to the question. I quickly let me also read the question from Priscilla. I think she dropped that question. Okay, I think I've already attended to it. That's great. All right, over to you, Mr. Femi.
Okay, so I think the question I got was one, and that's how governments and private sector organizations can contribute to attainment of SDGs in rural communities, especially. So that's very important. So I would say again that everyone needs to contribute. And when we say everyone needs to contribute, it's not just a cliche. So part of contribution could even mean voicing out. Okay, these are the challenges we have. We could, at this juncture, I would want to say that there's a need to come together as a united front. So let's talk about the community. I want to speak in a personal manner to the person who asked the question. Let's talk about the community where you reside. Let's say it's a rural community, for example. You could champion that cause, get together a number of youths. You don't have to be all the youths, but let it be representative. It could be 10, 15. Develop just a concept, 1 page, 2 pages, and find a way to maybe take that concept note to probably, I know this will sound funny and you say, oh, this is Nigeria, but we are talking about something that has worked. And we have also tried some of these. Mr. Emmanuel can say a thing or two about what I'm referring to. Approach the local government chairman in that community. If that's not working out, find the lawmaker representing that community at the State House of Assembly, for example, or find a way of getting to maybe the commissioner or the governor or the House of Representatives, the person representing that community in the House of Representatives or in the Senate, or just maybe even the SDG desk office, because each state actually has an advisor to the governor on sustainable development goals. Find a way of reaching out to these. Also, I'm aware that in states, each state of the country, there is there are different, what's it called now? There are different ways of engaging with the community. For example, in Ekiti State, there's Ekiti State Civil Society Development Agency. And what that agency does is they move around communities. They want to find out what the needs of communities are. When they found out the needs of communities, they will tell the communities to contribute 10% of what they need. And then the remaining 90%, in terms of financial contribution, the government will make. And this happens consistently. It's still an ongoing thing. It's been in place over the last 15 years. I'm sure different states in the country engage on this. The last thing I would want to say, there's a particular government office, I want to mention that name, that our organization has been trying to partner with to put together an initiative. We've been at this for about 4 years. It was just on the 1st of this month that we're successfully able to achieve what we set out to do. So again, I'm saying this is not just theorizing. It's something that we have tested ourselves and we have seen that it worked. That's just one example out of many. So it's something that can actually be achieved and realized.
Yes,
Thank you once again.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much, Mr. Femi. It did been a wonderful session, and yes, being the very first session which we are using to kickstart this program, we sincerely want to appreciate you, sir, for taking time to attend to our call and facilitate this session. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. And on behalf of SDS and Nigeria at large, we really want to say thank you for facilitating today's session, sir. And definitely, I know that over times when we call on you, you still attend to us. I would also like to ask that I know that some of our participants would like to connect with you. They would like to have a further conversation in form of maybe mentorship with you. I want to request if you like to, which of these you like them to, platform you like them to contact you, maybe your email address or your phone number, or maybe on WhatsApp, which of these avenue will you prefer them to contact you?
I think the email will be perfect. Email will be perfect. Yes.
All right, sir. So definitely, we appreciate you. Okay, I'll drop it. I'll drop it on your behalf. And once again, we want to appreciate you very much, sir. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the week. So I believe it's been a wonderful time, each and everyone. Quickly, I would like to do a briefing as regards the program. Thank God, Mr. Femi is still here. Okay, I believe there was a guide that was shared with us yesterday. I believe we all studied the guide. Though I'm going to ask each and everyone, should in case you have a particular question or particular area in which you are not so clear with, the scope of this project and basically what this project is meant to achieve is to create a community of young leaders and advocates that are going to promote and champion SDGs in Nigeria, yes, across the 36 states of Nigeria. And we can't do this without, we can't just leave the SDGs to the government alone. Yeah, as youth, as young adults, we all have a role to play. Even the teenagers, they have a role to play. And one of the core objective is for us to improve the awareness and theoretical knowledge of Nigerian youth about SDGs. And also the other aspect is to also train the young ones who are upcoming, because we either will like it or not, this generation, we are the only one that can, I could remember Mr. Femi was talking about how we safeguarding the planet, yeah, when he was talking about environmental sustainability. It's this generation, we are the only one that can ensure that, yeah, definitely, so that the upcoming future generation can also have their needs met. So basically, the strategy is the program is going to run for 12 weeks, and we've started today, 9th of September. The training session is going to span for 5 weeks consecutively, which is going to end 7th of October. And in between the 5 weeks, we are going to have the first assessment. Yes, this program is, definitely some of us, maybe we've been out of school for years, and we're like, oh, I'm going to read again. Yeah, this you are going to, not just that you are going to read, because we don't need you to read. We need you to try as much, endeavor you study, endeavor you attend the classes, and endeavor you share the learnings. Just like you, Mr. Femi has facilitated today, I know that there are salient points which he has shared with us. Endeavor to share it with your colleagues, your family and friends. These are ways in which we can get to know more. And by 7th of October, we'll also be having a peer networking by SDGs. And during the period of the masterclass session, we are going to group each and every one to various SDG, which we would like to advocate on. And finally, is the ending the masterclass session, which is the phase 1 of the project, is the final assessment, which is going to hold between 14th and 16th of October at your own self-paced time, any time which you really want to have it. But it's going to be a virtual assessment too. And your assessment and your attendance is what is going to qualify you to move to the phase 2 of the project. And the phase 2 of the project is basically the advocacy part. The advocacy is into 2 dimensions. The first one is the Own a School project, and the second one is the community movement and campaign. What do we mean by Own a School project? Own a School project is a project in which each advocate is to identify a particular school within 5 meter radius where you are of your current locale. And yeah, the presentation is going to be shared. I've earlier mentioned that. I just quickly need to say it again. For Own a School project, the Own a School project which we are planning is each and every participant is going to have a school which you are going to go and train the students. Yeah. It's very important, like someone was asking about the SDG 4. Education I won't say it's the mastermind of all the sustainable development goals. Yeah, but achieving the SDGs, we really need to invest more in education. I know some of us question, what about ASU strike, all the things that are happening. Yeah, if these people are well educated, I'm not saying they are not educated, but if they know the essence of education, I know that won't be where we are today. And I definitely believe that with time, things are going to fall in place in the rightful position. Then the other part is the community campaign, and that's the community movement. This we are going to do in group, yeah, across the 36 states. I'm proud to say it. We have representatives, we have applicants, and across the 36 states. So this SDG advocacy, you are to discuss within your group and identify a particular group in which you want to speak to. Like someone on YouTube mentioned that even in the rural areas, they still don't believe that there is anything like climate issue with even the farmers, they don't believe if there is climate with there are issues within the climate system and all. Then after that is the project report submission. We are all going to submit a report as regards the Own a School project, which we've done, and the community movement. That's going to be later in November. And after that is the mentorship for SDGs. So what we've done, another thing which we've done, which is going to favor each and every one, is we've been able to identify mentors per SDG that are going to serve as a role model, that can serve as role model that each and everyone can always run back to. Because aside partnership, another challenge, aside funding and partnership, another challenge which we also identify when it comes to development work is mentorship. Many of us, it's not like we lack mentorship. We just feel like we don't have access to mentors, people that can share their experience, their vast experience. So definitely we are going to be creating a platform as part of this program. And 30th of November 2022, we are going to be having the virtual certification and graduation, which is going, like I mentioned, which is going to be the last part of the event. But please, this is very important. The masterclass session are very important. The videos are on YouTube. You can always go over to go and rewatch. And most of those questions which we've asked, we can always, these are things we can further deliberate on the Telegram platforms. More reason why we are using, I know some of us have been asking that, why are we not using WhatsApp? We are very used to WhatsApp than Telegram. Yeah, you know, Telegram, WhatsApp can only accommodate a maximum of 500 capacity. So that's why we have to move. But when we are having the breakouts per state and per SDGs, we are going to use the WhatsApp platform for easy accessibility for each and every one. And I've earlier mentioned that we'll be having 2 assessments. And the first assessment is going to be in between the master classes. And after the master classes, we are going to have the final assessments. And to end the project is the advocacy project. I would quickly like to talk more to throw it open to each and everyone. If you have any question or any area you want you quickly want me to attend to, please kindly signify why I do that. So someone already asked that will all classes be, will it be in the morning? Yes, all the classes are going to be in the morning between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. It's going to be between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. Okay, someone also mentioned that I tried to click the links, but it's not clickable. Is it the link on your email or the link on the comment section? If it's the link on the comment section, those links are very, very, very easy for you to pick up. It's just bit.ly/SAB evaluation. So it's very, very easy. Okay, if it's the one on the email, please kindly contact any of the admin persons. They are going to attend to you. They will send the link directly to you for it. And please always check your email. If you don't check you might, sometimes your messages might go to your socials or promotions. Even sometimes might go to your spam. It's very important. As far as you are in the development space, always check your spam. Once you are checking your spam, that means you are checking your socials. And the masterclass session is going to be on Fridays alone. So we are going to be having it consecutively for the next 4 weeks. Yeah. And after that, we move to the advocacy project. So I believe those of us that are raising up our hand I believe we are not having a question. We are having questions as related to what I've just said. I would like to, Mr. Kenneth, you can unmute your mic and speak while Uche also asks his question. And I'll quickly answer this question from Ineke. The advocacy project, the first part is which is the most, you are going to do that individually. You can do that with your friends or teammates. So, sorry, FCT Abuja, we recognize the project. So, the interstate, the community is going to be a project. It's not an individual thing. Hello, Kenneth, please, can you unmute your mic? Unmute your mic and ask your question.
All right, hello, thank you so much. I want to appreciate you, Mr. Murray, the moderator. I want to say you actually did a very wonderful job this morning. My question is, are you going to have any physical meeting at all throughout the program, or everything will be virtual? Thank you, and have a nice day.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kenneth. All right. I will change to ask your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. I have two questions. The first one is the attendance list link they posted is requesting for permission access, so you cannot edit it and fill it.
You can't edit the attendance link that was posted this morning.
Yes, the link is asking for access. It's asking for editing access.
Please kindly check from your end. a lot of people have filled the attendance link. I think that should be from your end. That should be from your end. Can you check again? You can use another platform to do that. And based on the question Mr. Kenneth asked, we are, for the masterclass session, we are not going to be having any physical engagements. But when you get to the phase 2 of the project, we are going to be having physical engagements across all the states, including FCT. We are going to have physical engagements whereby you are going to, but the school which you are going to is just a school, let's 5 kilometer radius from your current location. So it's not like you are traveling, because I also received a question from one of the participants this morning that are we going to be traveling? You are not traveling. You are just meant to identify a school 5 kilometer radius from your current existing location, and which we are going to you are going to own for a period of a month, and you engage them on SDG learning. Definitely, we are still going to share some other materials with you. And please, as part of this, not just the masterclass session, the live masterclass session is not just all you are going to learn. We are still going to send some online courses which you can have at your own pace. These are courses that is going to enhance your knowledge and equip you with more information, and that can, yes, that will definitely add to your. And these courses which you are going to do are courses that you are going to have instant certification on, and definitely you are not going to make any payments. So I believe I have answered your question. Okay, please, can you unmute your mic and ask your question? Then Sonny Omeka should please also ask his question. Please your mic and ask your question. I think there is a network issue from your end. Okay, Sonny Omeka, please kindly unmute your mic and ask your question. Sonny Omeka, if you can hear me, you can unmute your mic and ask your question. Amarachi, you can ask your question as well if any one of you can pick it up. We are not going to be having any classes on Saturdays. The classes are going to be on Friday between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. So let's just endeavor to know this through our schedule. Amarachi, you can ask your question. Please kindly unmute your mic and ask your question.
Sorry, I was trying to fill the form. I've already gotten it. That's what I wanted to ask. Okay,
that's what you wanted to. All right, that's fine. Thank you. That's fine. So, Mohammed, please, you can unmute your mic and ask your question. Sadia, sorry, apologies if I'm pronouncing your name wrongly. Please kindly lower your hand if you've asked your question, while we build more focus on the program structure and the informative part of the program. Please ensure you fill the attendance before you leave. Sadia, you can unmute your mic and ask your question. Evelyn, you can unmute your mic and ask your question. I think we have some of them online. Okay, there is a question from Marachi again. Is the class only on Fridays? Yes, the classes are only on Fridays, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. It might not extend to 12 p.m. though, but due to questions and answer, we always like to try as much as possible to attend to each and every one for them to ask their question. I think I've attended to your question, or if I have not, please unmute your mic and ask.
Hello.
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Can you?
Actually, talking about adopting a school, because there is a standard ethics between from the education board, whereby you cannot just go and start engaging students without seeking necessary approval from the state education board. So how would this initiative liaise with the various state education board to give authorization for the adoptions of schools by the advocates?
So thank you very much for that question. We are going to provide each advocate a formal letter in that regard. So that's what you are going to submit wherever you are going to, and it's going to definitely, when they see the letter, they can't reject. So there is no, you don't have issues regarding that. All right. I believe I've answered your question. All right. Thank you very much. Sonny Omeka, do you still want to ask your question? Kindly unmute your mic. You can unmute your mic, please. Okay, let me just, all right, you can unmute yourself now. Sonny Omeka, you can unmute yourself. Okay, we can hear you now.
On the master class.
Sorry, come again. Can you come again? Okay, I think we have Chinaza. Chinaza, please. Though we still, for those of us that have special questions, maybe you have an area you really want us to attend to, or you want us to help with, I would appreciate you don't use the Telegram to make that kind of conversation. Endeavor, just send an email to nigeria@sdsnyouth.org. It's on the flyer which all of us used to apply, and also the DP flyer, and it's also going to be posted now. And I think I've already mentioned that we are going to have, I think some people are still asking about the slide. For each week, there is a platform which we are going to be posting all the learning resources to. You can always go back there, and definitely there are other learning documents on SDGs, which we have uploaded there. You can always go there to download it at any point in time. So even when you maybe you lose the documents, endeavor to go back and check the document there. So Sharif, I think Sharif wants to ask a question. Please, I want us to, we are going to be ending this call in the next 10 minutes. I just want to try as much as possible to attend to our questions before we end the call. Then after Sharif, please, you can ask the question as well.
Good morning.
All right, Sharif, we can hear you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Sharif Usman from Niger State. Please, I want to know if the meeting is actually divided into sections. Because earlier before I get access into the meeting, I was being asked to be patient as a result of capacity being occupied. So I don't know.
Please, can you speak further? I find it difficult to hear.
I said the meeting, I don't know if it's divided into section by section, because I know the meeting is supposed to start by 9 o'clock. And I find it, I joined it late because of a network problem. Another problem related to maybe capacity occupied or something. So is it divided into sections, or from where I joined, I got the whole message?
Let me quickly respond to your question.
Sorry. In regards to that attendance, I'm still trying to find a way to get a link. I don't know how I'll go about it.
Check the comment section. The attendance link is going to be posted again. We are going to post it again. And regarding the class, I didn't join early. you can always go back to the YouTube platform. The videos are on YouTube forever. We are not deleting it. It's just for us to be able to have access to it over and over. I believe I have attended to your question. Chinaza, please kindly unmute your mic and ask the question. Why we take the very last questions from Evelyn if she's still there to ask her question. Chinaza.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much.
Yes, please. I asked earlier if the advocacy project is going to be individually or in groups, but I didn't get your answer because someone's mic was interfering.
Okay, the two categories of the project is the Honest School project and community campaign, which you are doing. The Honest School project is an individual project which you have to do, but you can seek assistance from your friends around you, and definitely, and also the community campaign is an interstate project which we are going to do. During the course of, before the end of the masterclass session, we are going to group each and every one in their respective states. The links are going to be shared, and definitely it's going to be a WhatsApp platform for each and every one for each state. So you discuss, we are going to tell you we are going to give you a list of projects which you can do. You discuss and select from which one you really want to embark on. I believe I've answered your question. Please, okay. All other questions might be sent via email. Okay, I promise that we are going to end this call by 11:10. The other question, Mr. Agbo, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrongly. Agbo, please kindly unmute your mic and ask your question.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks for this initiative. My question is the Honest School project. Are we going to what are we going to be training the students on, or what exactly are we going to be telling the students and the community? Is it based on what we do personally, or the advocacy we do personally? Because I am a sickle cell advocate. So if I'm doing this Honest School project, is it about sickle cell I will advocate, or you guys are to give us what to advocate on?
Okay, basically you are training each school based on SDGs as a whole. And like we said, there are some other learning materials which we are going to share with you at the end of the phase one. Yeah, definitely that is after the assessment. We are going to share those materials, and the learning based on any class. Yeah, definitely. And I remember you also mentioned the your own personal initiative. Yeah, that's a very good and lovely one, because what we're also trying to do is in each of those schools, though we have existing schools that already have their own SDG clubs, and it's more important for us to engage the teenagers from the grassroots. And the community development project, the community campaign is based on whatever your team decides on. So if it's on maybe earth-related issues, maybe it's on pollution, that's what you people want to advocate on, or you want to sensitize people on, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. But as far as it's still within the instructions and guide given on each of these projects. But we might not really share the information. I mean, the document, we are not going to share the document out now, not until we are done with the phase one of this program. I think I answered your question. It's been a wonderful time I believe it's been a wonderful time for each and every one of us. And even myself, it's been a wonderful time for me, because we just have to keep learning, we have to relearn, we have to unlearn, and yeah, we keep growing in knowledge. I really want to appreciate each and every one for being part, and I also want to congratulate you for being part of this training. Yeah, please endeavor to connect, network with each other, and see how we can meet positive ends in achieving the sustainable development goals. And my special appreciation goes to the technical team, the administrative team, and the academic team for this project. Thank you for all you do. Though they've been working back to back, and we might not see them, you definitely know them later. And also to the leadership of SDGs Nigeria, thank you for creating this platform for us. We all appreciate you all. And I wish each and everyone a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice weekend. Thank you. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you all and have a wonderful day.
Hello. Hello.
September 2015, the member states of the UN adopted the 2030 Agenda and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Under this unified agenda, the international community combined the commitments to sustainable development that were made at the UN's Rio+20 conference with the process of renewing the Millennium Development Goals implemented between 2000 and 2015. What's new about the 2030 Agenda is its universal nature. Its 17 goals apply to all member states, not simply the poor countries and the populations of the South. Furthermore, each of these goals must be achieved in a way which respects the three dimensions of sustainable development: social, economic, and environmental. Among the 17 goals that have been identified are those relating to poverty, education, energy, gender equality, environmental conservation, responsible consumption and production, and the fight against climate change. The universal nature of the 2030 Agenda means that each of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals will be implemented differently in different countries. For example, while certain countries continue to struggle with hunger, others should be more concerned with promoting a healthy diet and combating obesity. While Switzerland throws away a third of its food, other countries lose a significant proportion of their harvests because of inadequate storage. And while certain populations are concerned about access to energy, many others consume enormous amounts and need to find a solution to reduce this consumption and its impact on the environment. Switzerland played an important role in the drafting of the 2030 Agenda. For example, it has a particular interest in some of the issues included in the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, such as health, gender equality, water and peace. Switzerland is also concerned about some of the cross-cutting aspects which must be considered, such as means of sustainable consumption and production, or reducing disaster risk. The 2030 Agenda will therefore impact directly on how Switzerland's international cooperation develops, as it helps to implement the goals at the international level. Nationally, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals will be factored to a greater extent into domestic policy decisions and statements to the Swiss people. Everyone is responsible for putting the 2030 Agenda into practice. Its adoption also marks a shift in the way in which sustainable development is approached and implemented. Individual citizens, civil society, the private sector, the scientific community, the cantons and communes. There are many actors who can pool their skills and interests to make the 17 Sustainable Development Goals a reality. All sources of funding will be important in realizing sustainable development, be they public, private, national, or international. The systematic implementation of projects funded in public-private partnerships is one example of how synergies can be created and more money mobilized. By working together, we can enable everyone to live a life of dignity. But we must ensure that economic and social development is not achieved at the expense of the environment. It is an approach that is as ambitious as it is promising, and one to which Switzerland is committed by adopting the 2030 Agenda and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals.